Welcome back to another explainer, everyone. Today, we are going on a totally fascinating journey into the unknown. Have you ever stopped to wonder how scientists actually study things they literally cannot see or touch? Well, today we're exploring the ultimate superpower of science, making the invisible visible. I mean, think about it for a second. How exactly do you study a black hole that you can't just go visit, or an atom that's so unimaginably small you couldn't possibly see it with the naked eye? Our human perception has massive limitations when we're dealing with the extremes of our universe. We obviously can't hold a solar system in our hands, and we definitely can't rewind millions of years of rock erosion just to watch it happen in real time. So, how in the world do we bridge that gap? To answer that, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll look at the scale problem. Second, the toolkit. Third, we'll talk trade-offs. And fourth, science versus not science. Let's dive right into section 1, the scale problem. Too big, too small, too fast, too slow. So the core question is, how do we observe things that exist entirely outside of our normal human experience? On one extreme, we've got the impossibly small atom. On the other, the incredibly massive Earth. Trying to study either of those in their entirety, directly, it's basically impossible for a single human. And this perfectly illustrates why scientists so desperately need tools to scale reality up or scale it down. They literally need a way to bring the entire universe right to their workbench. And that brings us to the ultimate solution, the scientific model. Now, a scientific model is basically a simplified representation of a system, object, idea, event, or process that helps scientists explain, test, and predict how things work. The absolute crucial point here is that phrase, simplified representation. It doesn't actually need to be a perfect one-to-one copy of reality. It just needs to be simple enough for us to grasp, while still being accurate enough to actually help us learn something new. Moving right along to section 2, the toolkit, 3 types of scientific models. Let's pop open the scientist's detective toolkit, so to speak, and see exactly how they build these representations. Inside, you're going to find 3 primary tools. Number 1, physical models, the kind you can actually touch. Number 2, mathematical models, the ones you calculate. And number 3, conceptual models, which help you connect the dots. But keep in mind the golden rule of science as we go through these. A good model absolutely must match the purpose of the investigation. Let's start with physical models. These are highly tangible. Think of a globe, or maybe a miniature plastic volcano. These are smaller, larger, or just simpler 3D representations of the actual thing being studied. If your goal is to figure out the physical structure, the shape, or the size of the Earth's continents, or, how a volcano is built inside, a physical model is absolutely perfect. You can literally spin a globe or take apart a model skeleton right in your hands. Next up, we have conceptual models. These are all about visualizing ideas and relationships. So instead of physical objects, they use words, arrows, flowcharts, and simple diagrams. Take the water cycle, for example. You've got evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and collection. You can't just easily build a 3D physical model of an entire weather system in a lab, right? But a well-drawn diagram perfectly explains how all those moving parts connect and interact. It's brilliant for helping us visualize the invisible processes that keep our world running. Our third tool is the mathematical model. This is where scientists bust out the numbers, the equations, graphs, and hard data to describe patterns. For instance, the classic equation, speed equals distance divided by time. By relying on concrete data, scientists can uncover hidden patterns and make some seriously precise predictions. If you want to know exactly how long it's going to take a rocket to reach Mars, you're not going to draw a conceptual diagram, right? You're going to rely on the cold, hard numbers of a mathematical model. Which leads us perfectly into section 3, trade-offs, strengths, and limitations. Here's a quick reality check. No single tool is perfect, and that introduces a necessary bit of tension in scientific discovery. Let's compare those trade-offs. Physical models are fantastic because they show structure, shape, and size beautifully. But their limitation? Well, they're rarely exact copies of reality. A plastic volcano doesn't have real boiling magma in it, so it naturally lacks fine detail. Mathematical models are absolutely essential for predicting the future using numbers, but they are totally useless, even dangerous, frankly, if your initial data or assumptions are wrong. And finally, conceptual models make it super straightforward to understand complex relationships, but the exact measurable numbers might be completely missing from the picture. So what do scientists do when literally every tool has a flaw? Well, here's the secret. They combine them. In the real world, it is incredibly rare that one model is enough.
Think about a climate scientist trying to understand global warming. They might use physical instruments to gather real-world data, conceptual diagrams to map out complex carbon cycles, and massive mathematical computer simulations all at exactly the same time to get the full picture. By layering these models on top of each other, they cover up each other's blind spots. It's like a giant puzzle coming together.
Now for our final field test, Section 4, Science versus Not Science, the FAIR test. Let's see how you can deploy this new knowledge to spot the difference between real, rigorous science and, well, just a random guess. Imagine someone testing a new fertilizer. In a true scientific FAIR test, the scientist only changes one single variable, the type of fertilizer. They are super rigorous about keeping the amount of water, the sunlight, and the type of pot exactly the same for every single plant. But if someone else tries the same test, and they're using different pots, different amounts of water, putting some plants in the shade, well, it's just totally unfair. You absolutely cannot prove the fertilizer did anything if you went and changed 5 other things at the exact same time. So let's turn this into a rapid-fire quiz. Imagine someone tells you about a lucky bracelet. A student claims wearing it gets him higher test scores, but he doesn't ever test it or collect any actual data. Is that science? Nope. No way. Or what about a magic crystal that supposedly makes water boil faster because of its quote-unquote magic powers, but there's absolutely no fair test or evidence provided? Automatically disqualified. True science relies on fair tests, careful observations, and hard evidence, like properly testing paper towels for absorbency or running that strict plant growth investigation we just talked about. To make this super easy to put into practice, here is a handy 4-step quick check checklist. You can use this to verify if any experiment or claim you encounter out in the wild is a truly fair test. Step 1. Is there a testable question? Step 2. Was only one variable changed while literally everything else was kept the exact same? Step 3. Were actual real measurements and data recorded? And Step 4. Can other people repeat it and get that exact same result? If the answer to any of those questions is no, you are not looking at science. So the absolutely crucial takeaway from our explainer today is this. Science isn't just about memorizing facts. It's entirely about the method used to discover them. The next time you read some bold scientific claim in the news or scrolling through social media, don't just take it at face value. Ask yourself, what model did they use to figure this out, and was it a truly fair test? Because if the underlying models are flawed, our entire understanding of reality might just be an illusion.